Hey there, folks! Today, we're diving into the fascinating world of North Carolina, one of the 50 states in the United States of America. North Carolina is a state rich in history, geography, demographics, economy, arts and culture, tourism, transportation, education, health, media, government and politics, and sports. Let's start with a brief history lesson. North Carolina was one of the original 13 colonies, and it played a significant role in the American Revolution. The state is known for its diverse landscape, including the Appalachian Mountains, the Piedmont region, and the coastal plains. Moving on to demographics, North Carolina is home to a diverse population with a mix of ethnicities, cultures, and religions. The state's economy is driven by a variety of industries, including agriculture, manufacturing, and technology. North Carolina is also known for its vibrant arts and culture scene, with a rich history of music, literature, and visual arts. Tourism is a significant contributor to the state's economy, with popular attractions such as the Outer Banks, the Blue Ridge Parkway, and the Biltmore Estate. When it comes to transportation, North Carolina has a well-developed network of highways, airports, and railways. The state is also home to several universities and colleges, making it a hub for education. Healthcare is another important aspect of North Carolina, with several world-renowned medical centers and research institutions. The state also has a thriving media industry, with several newspapers, magazines, and television stations. Lastly, North Carolina is a sports enthusiast's paradise, with professional teams in baseball, basketball, football, and hockey. That's a wrap on our journey through North Carolina. Thank you for joining us, and don't forget to follow and subscribe for more fascinating insights into the United States. North Carolina, Kerklonk, Carculi NQ, is a state in the southeastern region of the United States. It is bordered by Virginia to the north, the Atlantic Ocean to the east, South Carolina to the south, Georgia to the southwest, and Tennessee to the west. The state is the 28th largest and 9th most populous of the United States. Along with South Carolina, it makes up the Carolinas region of the East Coast. At the 2020 census, the state had a population of 10,439,388. Raleigh is the state's capital, and Charlotte is its most populous city. The Charlotte metropolitan area, with an estimated population of 2,805,115 in 2023. 11 is the most populous metropolitan area in North Carolina, the 22nd most populous in the United States, and the largest banking center in the nation after New York City. 12. The Research Triangle, with an estimated population of 2,368,947 in 2023, is the second most populous combined metropolitan area in the state, 31st most populous in the United States, 11, and is home to the largest research park in the United States, Research Triangle Park. The earliest evidence of human occupation in North Carolina dates back 10,000 years, found at the Hardaway site. North Carolina was inhabited by Carolina Algonquian, Iroquoian, and Siouan-speaking tribes of Native Americans prior to the arrival of Europeans. King Charles II granted 8 Lord Proprietors a colony they named Carolina after the king, and which was established in 1670 with the first permanent settlement at Charlestown, Charleston, because of the difficulty of governing the entire colony from Charlestown. The colony was eventually divided, and North Carolina was established as a royal colony in 1729 and was one of the 13 colonies. The Halifax Resolves Resolution, adopted by North Carolina on April 12, 1776, was the first formal call for independence from Great Britain among the American colonies during the American Revolution. 13. On November 21, 1789, North Carolina became the 12th state to ratify the United States. In the run-up to the American Civil War, North Carolina reluctantly declared its secession from the Union on May 20, 1861. becoming the 10th of 11 states to join the Confederate States of America. Following the Civil War, the state was restored to the Union on July 4, 1868. 15. On December 17, 1903, Orville and Wilbur Wright successfully piloted the world's first controlled, sustained flight of a powered, heavier-than-air aircraft at Kitty Hawk in North Carolina's Outer Banks. North Carolina often uses the slogan "First in Flight" on state license plates to commemorate this achievement, alongside a newer alternative design bearing the slogan "First in Freedom" in reference to the Mecklenburg Declaration and Halifax Resolves. North Carolina is defined by a wide range of elevations and landscapes. From west to east, North Carolina's elevation descends from the Appalachian Mountains to the Piedmont and Atlantic coastal plain. North Carolina's Mount Mitchell, at 6,684 feet to 1,037 meters, is the highest point in North America east of the Mississippi River's 16. Most of the state falls in the humid subtropical climate zone. However, the western, mountainous part of the state has a subtropical highland climate. 17. History. North Carolina was inhabited for at least 10,000 years by succeeding prehistoric indigenous cultures. The Hardaway site saw major periods of occupation dating to 10,000 years BCE. Before 200 AD, people were building earthwork platform mounds for ceremonial and religious purposes. Succeeding peoples, including those of the South Appalachian Mississippian culture, established by 1000 AD in the Piedmont and Mountain region, continued to build this style of mounds. In contrast to some of the larger centers of the classic Mississippian culture in the area that became known as the Western Carolinas, Northeastern Georgia, and Southeastern Tennessee, most of the larger towns had only one central platform mound. Smaller settlements had none, but were close to more prominent towns. This area became known as the homelands of the historic Cherokee people, who are believed to have migrated over time from the Great Lakes area. In the 500 to 700 years preceding European contact, the Mississippian culture built elaborate cities and maintained far-flung regional trading networks. Its largest city was Cahokia, which had numerous mounds for different purposes, a highly stratified society, and was located in present-day southwestern Illinois near the Mississippi River. Starting in 1540, the native polities of the Mississippian culture fell apart and were formed as new groups, such as the Catawba, due to a series of destabilizing events known as the Mississippian Shatter Zone, introduction of colonial trading arrangements, and hostile native groups from the north such as the Westo Indians hastened changes in an already tenuous regional hierarchy. 18. As described by anthropologist Robbie Etheridge, the Mississippian Shatter Zone was a time of great instability in what is now the American South, caused by the instability of Mississippian chiefdoms, high mortality from new Eurasian diseases, conversion to an agricultural society, and the accompanying population increase, and the emergence of native militaristic slaving societies. 19. Historically documented tribes in the North Carolina region include the Carolina Algonquian-speaking tribes of the coastal areas, such as the Chowanoc, Roanoke, Pamlico, Machapunga, and Corey, who were the first encountered by the English, the Iroquois-unspeaking Meherrin, Cherokee, and Tuscarora of the interior, and southeastern Siouan-speaking tribes, such as the Cherokee, Waxhaw, Saponi, Wacamo, Cape Fear Indians, and Catawba of the Piedmont. 2021-20 to 23. In the late 16th century, the first Spanish explorers traveling inland recorded meeting Mississippian culture people at Jora, a regional chiefdom near what later developed as Morganton. 24. Records of Hernando de Soto attested to his meeting with them in 1540. In 1567, Captain Juan Pardo led an expedition to claim the area for the Spanish colony and to establish another route to reach silver mines in Mexico. 25. Pardo made a winter base at Jora, which he renamed Cuenca. 26-27. His expedition built Fort San Juan and left a contingent of 30 Spaniards there, while Pardo traveled further, 26 his forces built and garrisoned 5 other forts. He returned by a different route to Santa Elena on Parris Island, South Carolina, then a center of Spanish Florida. In the spring of 1568, natives killed all but 74 of the Spaniards and burned the 6 forts in the interior, including Fort San Juan. 28. Although the Spanish never returned to the interior, this effort marked the first European attempt at colonization of the interior of what became the United States. A 16th century journal by Pardo's Scribe Bandera and archaeological findings since 1986 at Jora have confirmed the settlement. 2930. Anglo-European settlements or Walter Raleigh, namesake of the state capital of North Carolina, Raleigh. In 1584, Elizabeth I granted a charter to Sir Walter Raleigh, for whom the state capital is named, for land in present-day North Carolina, then part of the territory of Virginia. It was the second American territory that the English attempted to colonize. Raleigh established 2 colonies on the coast in the late 1580s, but both failed. The colony established in 1587 saw 118 colonists disappear when John White was unable to return from a supply run during battles with the Spanish Armada. The fate of the lost colony of Roanoke Island remains one of the most widely debated mysteries of American history. To native chieftains, Manteo and Wanchese, of which the former helped the colonists and the latter was distrustful, had involvement in the colony, and even accompanied Raleigh to England on a previous voyage in 1585. Manteo was also the first indigenous North American to be baptized by English settlers. Upon White's return in 1590, neither native nor Englishmen were to be found. Popular theory holds that the colonists either traveled away with or assimilated into local native culture. 30. To Virginia Dare, the first English person to be born in North America, was born on Roanoke Island on August 18, 1587. The surrounding Dare County is named for her. As early as 1650, settlers from the Virginia colony had moved into the Albemarle Sound region. He named it Carolina in honor of his father, Charles I 33. By 1665, a second charter was issued to attempt to resolve territorial questions. This charter rewarded the Lords Proprietors, 8 Englishmen to whom King Charles II granted joint ownership of a tract of land in the state. All of these men either had remained loyal to the crown or aided Charles's restoration to the English throne after Cromwell. In 1712, owing to disputes over governance, the Carolina colony split into North Carolina and South Carolina. North Carolina became a crown colony in 1729. 30. For most of the English colonists had arrived as indentured servants, hiring themselves out as laborers for a fixed period to pay for their passage. Some Africans were allowed to earn their freedom before slavery became a lifelong status. Most of the free colored families formed in North Carolina before the Revolution were descended from unions or marriages between free whites and enslaved or free Africans or African Americans. If the mothers were free, their children were born free. Many had migrated or were descendants of migrants from colonial Virginia. 35. Conditions for both slaves and workers worsened as the ranks of the former eclipsed the latter, and expansion of farming operations into former indigenous territories lowered prices. In 1738 to 1739, smallpox caused high fatalities among the Native Americans, who had no immunity to the new disease. It had become endemic over centuries in Europe. 37. According to the historian Russell Thornton, the 1738 epidemic was said to have killed 1/2 of the Cherokee, with other tribes of the area suffering equally. 38. Colonial period. After the Spanish in the 16th century, the first permanent European settlers of North Carolina were English colonists who migrated south from Virginia. Virginia had grown rapidly and land was less available. Nathaniel Batts was documented as one of the first of these Virginian migrants. He settled south of the Chowan River and east of the Great Dismal Swamp in 1655. 39. By 1663, This northeastern area of the province of Carolina, known as the Albemarle settlements, was undergoing full-scale English settlement. 40. During the same period, the English monarch Charles II gave provincial land grants to the Lords Proprietors, the group of noblemen who had helped restore him to the throne in 1660. These grants were predicated on an agreement that the Lords would use their influence to bring in colonists and establish ports of trade. This new province of Carolina was named in honor and memory of his father, Charles I Latin, Carolus. Lacking a viable coastal port city due to geography, towns grew at a slower pace and remained small. By the late 17th century, Carolina was essentially two colonies, one centered in the Albemarle region in the north and the other located in the south around Charleston. 36. In 1705, South Carolinian John Lawson purchased land on the Pamlico River and laid out Bath, North Carolina's first town. After returning to England, he published the book A New Voyage to Carolina, which became a travelogue and a marketing piece to encourage new colonists to Carolina. Lawson encouraged Baron Christoph von Graffenried, the leader of a group of Swiss and German Protestants, to immigrate to Carolina. Von Graffenried purchased land between the Neuse and the Trent rivers and established the town of New Bern. After an attack on New Bern, in which hundreds were killed or injured, Lawson was caught then executed by Tuscarora Indians. A large revolt happened in the state in 1711, known as Carey's Rebellion. In 1712, North Carolina became a separate colony, and in 1729 it became a royal colony, with the exception of the Earl Granville holdings. 41. In June 1718, Queen Anne's Revenge, the flagship of Pirate Blackbird, ran aground at Beaufort Inlet, North Carolina, in present-day Carteret County. After the grounding, her crew and supplies were transferred to smaller ships. In November 1718, after appealing to the governor of North Carolina, who promised safe haven and a pardon, Blackbird was killed in an ambush by troops from Virginia. 42. In 1996, Intersal, Inc., a private maritime research firm, discovered the remains of a vessel likely to be the Queen Anne's Revenge, which was added to the U.S. National Register of Historic Places. 4340 for North Carolina became one of the 13 colonies, and with the territory of South Carolina was originally known as the province of North Carolina. The northern and southern parts of the original province separated in 1712, with North Carolina becoming a royal colony in 1729. Originally settled by small farmers, sometimes having a few slaves, who were oriented towards subsistence agriculture, the colony lacked large cities or towns. Pirates menaced the coastal settlements, but by 1718, piracy in the Carolinas was on the decline. Growth was strong in the middle of the 18th century as the economy attracted Scots-Irish, Quaker, English, and German immigrants. A majority of the North Carolina colonists generally supported the American Revolution, although there were some loyalists. Loyalists in North Carolina were fewer in number than in some other colonies, such as Georgia, South Carolina, Delaware, and New York. 45, 46, 47 during colonial times. Edmonton served as the state capital beginning in 1722, followed by New Bern becoming the capital in 7. Construction of Tryon Palace, which served as the residence and offices of the provincial governor William Tryon, began in 1767 and was completed in 1771. In 1788, Raleigh was chosen as the site of the new capital, as its central location protected it from coastal attacks. Officially established in 1792 as both county seat and state capital, the city was named after Sir Walter Raleigh, sponsor of Roanoke, the lost colony on Roanoke Island. 48. The population of the colony more than quadrupled from 52,000 in 1740 to 270,000 in 1780 from high immigration from Virginia, Maryland, and Pennsylvania, plus immigrants from abroad. 49. North Carolina did not have any printer or print shops until 1749, when the North Carolina Assembly commissioned James Davis from Williamsburg, Virginia, to act as their official printer. Before this time, the laws and legal journals of North Carolina were handwritten and were kept in a largely disorganized manner, prompting the hiring of Davis. Davis settled in New Bern, married, and in 1755 was appointed by Benjamin Franklin as North Carolina's first postmaster. In October of that year, the North Carolina Assembly awarded Davis a contract to carry mail between Wilmington, North Carolina, and Suffolk, Virginia. He was also active in North Carolina politics as a member of the Assembly and later as the sheriff. Davis also founded and printed the North Carolina Gazette, North Carolina's first newspaper, printed in his printing house in New Bern. 51 differences in the settlement patterns of eastern and western North Carolina, or the Atlantic coastal plain and uplands, affected the political, economic, and social life of the state from the 18th until the 20th century. Eastern North Carolina was settled chiefly by immigrants from rural England and Gaelic speakers from the Scottish Highlands. The Piedmont upcountry and western mountain region of North Carolina was settled chiefly by Scots-Irish, English, and German Protestants, the so-called Cahi. Arriving during the mid to late 18th century, the Scots-Irish, people of Scottish descent who migrated to and then emigrated from what is today Northern Ireland, were the largest non-English immigrant group before the Revolution. English indentured servants were overwhelmingly the largest immigrant group before the Revolution. Revolutionary War Halifax resolves plaque inside the North Carolina state capitol during the American Revolutionary War. The English and Gaelic-speaking Highland Scots of eastern North Carolina tended to remain loyal to the British Crown because of long-standing business and personal connections with Great Britain. The English, Welsh, Scots-Irish, and German settlers of western North Carolina tended to favor American independence from Britain. British loyalists dubbed the Mecklenburg County area to be a hornet's nest of radicals, birthing the name of the future Charlotte NBA team. On April 12, 1776, the colony became the first to instruct its delegates to the Continental Congress to vote for independence from the British Crown, through the Halifax resolves passed by the North Carolina Provincial Congress. The date of this event is memorialized on the state flag and state seal. Throughout the Revolutionary War, fierce guerrilla warfare erupted between bands of pro-independence and pro-British colonists. In some cases, the war was also an excuse to settle private grudges and rivalries. 57, North Carolina had around 7,800 patriots join the Continental Army under General George Washington, and an additional 10,000 served in local militia units under such leaders as General Nathanael Greene. 58. There was some military action, especially in 1780 to 81. Many Carolinian frontiersmen had moved west over the mountains into the Washington District, later known as Tennessee. But in 1789, following the Revolution, the state was persuaded to relinquish its claim to the western lands. It ceded them to the national government so the Northwest Territory could be organized and managed nationally. 59. A major American victory in the war took place at Kings Mountain along the North Carolina-South Carolina border. On October 7, 1780, a force of 1,000 patriots from western North Carolina, including what is today the state of Tennessee and Southwest Virginia, overwhelmed a force of some 1,000 British troops, led by Major Patrick Ferguson. Most of the soldiers fighting for the British side in this battle were Carolinians who had remained loyal to the Crown. They were called Tories or Loyalists. The American victory at Kings Mountain gave the advantage to colonists who favored American independence, and it prevented the British Army from recruiting new soldiers from the Tories. 61st Maryland Regiment holding the line at the Battle of Guilford Courthouse. 1708 won the road to Yorktown, and America's independence from Great Britain led through North Carolina. As the British Army moved north from victories in Charleston and Camden, South Carolina, the Southern Division of the Continental Army and local militia prepared to meet them. Following General Daniel Morgan's victory over the British cavalry commander Banastre Tarleton at the Battle of Cowpens on January 17, 1781, Southern Commander Nathanael Greene led British Lord Charles Cornwallis across the heartland of North Carolina and away from the latter's base of supply in Charleston, South Carolina. This campaign is known as the Race to the Dan, or the Race for the River. 41 in the Battle of Cowan's Ford, Cornwallis met resistance along the banks of the Catawba River at Cowan's Ford on February 1, 1781, in an attempt to engage General Morgan's forces during a tactical withdrawal. 61 Morgan had moved to the northern part of the state to combine with General Greene's newly recruited forces. Generals Greene and Cornwallis finally met at the Battle of Guilford Courthouse in present-day Greensboro on March 15, 1781. Although the British troops held the field at the end of the battle, their casualties at the hands of the numerically superior Continental Army were crippling. Following this Pyrrhic victory, Cornwallis chose to move to the Virginia coastline to get reinforcements and to allow the Royal Navy to protect his battered army. This decision would result in Cornwallis' eventual defeat at Yorktown, Virginia, later in 1781. The Patriots' victory there guaranteed American independence. On November 21, 1789, North Carolina became the 12th state to ratify the U.S. Constitution. After 1800, cotton and tobacco became important export crops. Planters owning large estates wielded significant political and socio-economic power in antebellum North Carolina, while slaveholding was slightly less concentrated compared to some other southern states. According to the 1860 census, more than 330,000 people, or 33% of the population out of 992, 622 people in total, were enslaved African Americans. 62. They lived and worked chiefly on plantations in the Piedmont and coastal plain regions of the state. In addition, 30,463 free people of color lived in the state. 62. They were also mainly concentrated in the eastern coastal plain, especially at port cities such as Wilmington and New Bern, where a variety of jobs were available. Most were descendants from free African Americans who had migrated along with neighbors from Virginia during the 18th century. Some were inspired by their efforts and the language of the Revolution to range from manumission of their slaves. The number of free people of color rose markedly in the first couple of decades after the Revolution. 60 for many free people of color migrated to the frontier, along with their European American neighbors, where the social system was looser. By 1810, nearly 3% of the free population consisted of free people of color, who numbered slightly more than 10,000. In the early national period, the state became a center of Jeffersonian and Jacksonian democracy, with a strong Whig presence, especially in the western part of the state. In 1835, the legislature withdrew their right to vote. In mid-century, the state's rural and commercial areas were connected by the construction of a 129 miles, 208 kilometers wooden plank road, known as a farmer's railroad, from Fayetteville in the east to Bethania northwest of Winston-Salem. 41. On October 25, 1836, construction began on the Wilmington and Raleigh Railroad 65 to connect the port city of Wilmington with the state capital of Raleigh. In 1840, the state capitol building in Raleigh was completed and still stands today. In 1849, the North Carolina Railroad was created by act of the legislature to extend that railroad west to Greensboro, High Point, and Charlotte. During the Civil War, the Wilmington to Raleigh stretch of the railroad was vital to the Confederate war effort. Supplies shipped into Wilmington were moved by rail through Raleigh to the Confederate capital of Richmond, Virginia. 66. The state did not vote to join the Confederacy until President Abraham Lincoln called on it to invade its sister state, 67 South Carolina, becoming the last or penultimate state to officially join the Confederacy. The title of last to join the Confederacy has been disputed, although Tennessee's informal secession on May 7, 1861, preceded North Carolina's official secession on May 20th. 68-69, the Tennessee legislature did not formally vote to secede until June 8, 1861. Around 125,000 troops from North Carolina served in the Confederate Army, and about 15,000 North Carolina troops, both black and white, served in Union Army regiments, including those who left the state to join Union regiments elsewhere. Over 30,000 North Carolina troops died from combat or disease during the war. 72. Elected in 1862. Governor Zebulon Baird Vance tried to maintain state autonomy against Confederate President Jefferson. The state government was reluctant to support the demands of the national government in Richmond, and the state was the scene of only small battles. In 1865, Durham County saw the largest single surrender of Confederate soldiers at Bennett Place, when Joseph E. Johnston surrendered the Army of Tennessee and all remaining Confederate forces still active in North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida, totaling 89,270 soldiers. 73. Bennett Place historic site in Durham. Confederate troops from all parts of North Carolina served in virtually all the major battles of the Army of Northern Virginia, the Confederacy's most famous army. The largest battle fought in North Carolina was at Bentonville, which was a futile attempt by Confederate General Joseph Johnston to slow Union General William Tecumseh Sherman's advance through the Kaw Rolinus in the spring of 1865. 41. In April 1865, after losing the Battle of Morrisville, Johnston surrendered to Sherman at Bennett Place in what is today Durham. North Carolina's port city of Wilmington was the last Confederate port to fall to the Union in February 1865, after the Union won the nearby Second Battle of Fort Fisher, its major defense downriver. The first Confederate soldier to be killed in the Civil War was Private Henry Wyatt from North Carolina in the Battle of Big Bethel in June 1861. At the Battle of Gettysburg in July 1863, the 26th North Carolina Regiment participated in Pettigrew's charge and advanced the farthest into Union lines of any Confederate regiment. During the Battle of Chickamauga, the 58th North Carolina Regiment advanced farther than any other regiment on Snodgrass Hill to push back the remaining Union forces from the battlefield. At Appomattox Courthouse in Virginia in April 1865, the 75th North Carolina Regiment, a cavalry unit, fired the last shots of the Confederate Army of Northern Virginia in the Civil War. The phrase first at Bethel, farthest at Gettysburg and Chickamauga, and last at Appomattox later became used through much of the early 20th century. 74. After secession, some North Carolinians refused to support the Confederacy. Some of the yeoman farmers, chiefly in the state's mountains and western Piedmont region, remained neutral during the Civil War, with others covertly supporting the Union cause during the conflict. 75. Approximately 15,000 North Carolinians, both black and white, from across the state enlisted in the Union Army. Numerous slaves also escaped to Union lines, where they became essentially free. Reconstruction era through late 19th century. Main article. Reconstruction era. William Woods Holden, a Unionist who served as the 38th and 40th governor of North Carolina, and during the Reconstruction era following the collapse of the Confederacy in 1865. North Carolina, along with other former Confederate states except Tennessee, was put under direct control by the U.S. military and was relieved of its constitutional government and representation within the United States Congress in what is now referred to as the Reconstruction era. To earn back its rights, the state had to make concessions to Washington, one of which was ratifying the 13th Amendment. Congressional Republicans during Reconstruction, commonly referred to as Radical Republicans, constantly pushed for new constitutions for each of the southern states that emphasized equal rights for African Americans. Though the 15th Amendment was also adopted that same year, it remained in most cases ineffective for almost a century, not to mention paramilitary groups and their lynching with impunity. 76. The elections in April 1868 following the Constitutional Convention led to a narrow victory for a Republican-dominated government, with 19 African Americans holding positions in the North Carolina state legislature. In an attempt to put the reforms into effect, the new Republican governor, William W. Holden, declared martial law on any county allegedly not complying with law and order using the passage of the Schaffner Act. A Republican Party coalition of black freedmen, northern carpetbaggers, and local scalawags controlled state government for 3 years. More than 150 black Americans were murdered in electoral violence in 1876. 77-78 post-Civil War debt cycles pushed people to switch from subsistence agriculture to commodity agriculture. Among this time, the notorious crop lien system developed and was financially difficult on landless whites and blacks due to high amounts of usury. Also due to the push for commodity agriculture, the free range was ended. Prior to this time, people fenced in their crops and had their livestock feeding on the free range areas. After the ending of the free range, people now fenced their animals and had their crops in the open. 79-80, segregated drinking fountain during the Jim Crow era in Halifax, 1938. Democrats were elected to the legislature and governor's office, but the populists attracted voters displeased with them. In 1896, a biracial, populist Republican fusionist coalition gained the governor's office and passed laws that would extend the voting franchise to blacks and poor whites. Voters of North Carolina's 2nd Congressional District elected a total of 4 African American congressmen through these years of the late 19th century. Political tensions ran so high a small group of white Democrats in 1898 planned to take over the Wilmington government if their candidates were not elected. In the Wilmington insurrection of 1898, white Democrats led around 2,000 of their supporters that attacked the black newspaper and neighborhood, killed an estimated 60 to 300 people, and ran off the white Republican mayor and aldermen. They installed their own people and elected Alfred M. Waddell as mayor in the only successful coup d'etat in United States history. 81 in 1899, the state legislature passed a new constitution with requirements for poll taxes and literacy tests for voter registration, which disenfranchised most black Americans in the state. 82, exclusion from voting had wide effects. It meant black Americans could not serve on juries or in any local office. Black citizens had no political voice in the state until after the Federal Civil Rights Act of 1964 and Voting Rights Act of 1965 were passed to enforce their constitutional rights. It was not until 1992 that another African American was elected as a U.S. representative from North Carolina. Early through mid-20th century, first successful flight of the Wright Flyer near Kitty Hawk, 1903. After the Reconstruction era, North Carolina had become a one-party state, dominated by the Democratic Party. The state mainly continued with an economy based on tobacco, cotton textiles, and commodity agriculture. Large towns and cities remained in few numbers. However, a major industrial base emerged in the late 19th and early 20th century in the counties of the Piedmont Triad, based on cotton mills established at the Fall Line. Railroads were built to connect the new industrializing cities. 80 for the state was the site of the first successful controlled, powered, and sustained heavier-than-air flight by the Wright brothers near Kitty Hawk on December 17, 1903. Map of Research Triangle, with points representing NC State University, Duke University, and University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill in the first half of the 20th century. Many African Americans left the state to go north for better opportunities. In the Great Migration, North Carolina was hard hit by the Great Depression, but the New Deal programs of Franklin D. Roosevelt for cotton and tobacco significantly helped the farmers. After World War II, the state's economy grew rapidly, highlighted by the growth of such cities as Charlotte, Raleigh, and Durham in the Piedmont region. Research Triangle Park, established in 1959, serves as the largest research park in the United States. Formed near Raleigh, Durham, and Chapel Hill, The Research Triangle Metro is a major area of universities and advanced scientific and technical research. The Greensboro sit-ins in 1960 played a crucial role in the civil rights movement to bring full equality to American blacks. By the late 1960s, spurred in part by the increasingly leftward tilt of national Democrats, conservative whites began to vote for Republican national candidates and gradually for more Republicans local. Late 85-86 late 20th century to present North Carolina Museum of History in Raleigh. 2008 since the 1970s, North Carolina has seen steady increases in population growth. This growth has largely occurred in metropolitan areas located within the Piedmont Crescent, in places such as Charlotte, Concord, Greensboro, Winston-Salem, Durham, and Raleigh. 87. The Charlotte metropolitan area has experienced large growth mainly due to its finance, banking, and tech industries. 88. By the 1990s, Charlotte had become a major regional and national banking center. Towards Raleigh, North Carolina State, Duke University, and University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill have helped the Research Triangle area attract an educated workforce and develop more jobs. 89. In 1988, North Carolina gained its first professional sports franchise, the Charlotte Hornets of the National Basketball Association (NBA). The Hornets team name stems from the American Revolutionary War, when British General Cornwallis described Charlotte as a hornet's nest of rebellion. 90. The Carolina Panthers of the National Football League (NFL) became based in Charlotte as well, with their first season being in 1995. The Carolina Hurricanes of the National Hockey League (NHL) moved to Raleigh in 1997, with their colors being the same as the NC State Wolfpack, who are also located in Raleigh. By the late 20th century and into the early 21st century, economic industries such as technology, pharmaceuticals, banking, food processing, vehicle parts, and tourism started to emerge as North Carolina's main economic drivers. This marked a shift from the state's former main industries of tobacco, textiles, and furniture. Factors that played a role in this shift were globalization, the state's higher education system, national banking, the transformation of agriculture, and new companies moving to the state. 91. Geography. North Carolina consists of three main geographic regions: the Atlantic Coastal Plain, occupying the eastern portion of the state, the Central Piedmont region, and the mountain region in the west, which is part of the Appalachian Mountains. The coastal plain consists of more specifically defined areas known as the Outer Banks, a string of sandy, narrow barrier islands separated from the mainland by sounds or inlets, including Albemarle Sound and Pamlico Sound, the native home of the Venus flytrap, and the intercoastal plain, where longleaf pine trees are native. So many ships have been lost off Cape Hatteras that the area is known as the Graveyard of the Atlantic. More than 1,000 ships have sunk in these waters since records began in 1526. The most famous of these is the Queen Anne's Revenge flagship of the pirate Blackbird, which went aground in Beaufort Inlet in 1718. 90. For the coastal plain transitions to the Piedmont region along the Atlantic seaboard fall line, the elevation at which waterfalls first appear on streams and rivers. The Piedmont region of central North Carolina is the state's most populous region, containing the sixth largest cities in the state by population. 95. It consists of gently rolling countryside frequently broken by hills or low mountain ridges. Small, isolated, and deeply eroded mountain ranges and peaks are located in the Piedmont, including the Soratown Mountains, Pilot Mountain, the Uwharrie Mountains, Crowder's Mountain, King's Pinnacle, the Brushy Mountains, and the South Mountains. The Piedmont ranges from about 300 feet, 100 meters in elevation in the east to about 1,500 feet, 500 meters in the west. The western section of the state is part of the Blue Ridge Mountains of the larger Appalachian Mountain Range. Among the subranges of the Blue Ridge Mountains located in the state are the Great Smoky Mountains and the Black Mountains. 96. 97. The Black Mountains are the highest in the eastern United States and culminate in Mount Mitchell at 6,684 feet to 1,037 meters, the highest point east of the Mississippi River. 90s. Climate main article, Climate of North Carolina. Also, climate change in North Carolina agricultural fields in the fall. Elevation above sea level is most responsible for temperature change across the state, with the mountainous regions being coolest year-round. The climate is also influenced by the Atlantic Ocean and the Gulf Stream, especially in the coastal plain. These influences tend to cause warmer winter temperatures along the coast, where temperatures only occasionally drop below the freezing point at night. The coastal plain averages around 1 inch to 0.5 centimeters of snow or ice annually, and in many years, there may be no snow or ice at all. 101. The Atlantic Ocean exerts less influence on the climate of the Piedmont region, which has hotter summers and colder winters than along the coast, though winters are still mild. 101. North Carolina experiences severe weather both in summer and in winter, with summer bringing threat of hurricanes, tropical storms, heavy rain, and flooding. 100. Destructive hurricanes that have hit North Carolina include Hurricane Fran, Hurricane Florence, Hurricane Floyd, Hurricane Hugo, and Hurricane Hazel, the latter being the strongest storm ever to make landfall in the state, as a Category 4 in 1954. Hurricane Isabel ranks as the most destructive of the 21st century. 103. 100 for North Carolina averages fewer than 20 tornadoes per year, many of them produced by hurricanes or tropical storms along the coastal plain. Tornadoes from thunderstorms are a risk, especially in the eastern part of the state. The western Piedmont is often protected by the mountains, which tend to break up storms as they cross over. The storms will often reform farther east. A phenomenon known as cold air damming often occurs in the northwestern part of the state, which can weaken storms, but can also lead to major ice events in winter. 105. In April 2011, the worst tornado outbreak in North Carolina's history occurred. 30 confirmed tornadoes touched down, mainly in the eastern Piedmont and Sandhills, killing at least 24 people. 106. 107. In September 2019, Hurricane Dorian hit the area. North Carolina offers fall colors, freshwater and saltwater fishing, hunting, bird watching, agritourism, ATV trails, ballooning, rock climbing, biking, hiking, skiing, boating and sailing, camping, canoeing, caving, spelunking, gardens, and arboretums. North Carolina has theme parks, aquariums, museums, historic sites, lighthouses, elegant theaters, concert halls, and fine dining. 115. 116. North Carolinians enjoy outdoor recreation using numerous local bike paths. 30 for state parks, and 14 national parks. National Park Service units include the Appalachian National Scenic Trail, the Blue Ridge Parkway, Cape Hatteras National Seashore, Cape Lookout National Seashore, Carl Sandburg Home National Historic Site at Flat Rock, Fort Raleigh National Historic Site at Manteo, Great Smoky Mountains National Park, Great Smoky Mountains Railroad, Guilford Courthouse National Military Park in Greensboro, Moores Creek National Battlefield near Curry in Pender County, the Overmountain Victory National Historic Trail, Old Salem National Historic Site in Winston-Salem, the Trail of Tears National Historic Trail, and Wright Brothers National Memorial in Kill Devil Hills. National forests include Uwharrie National Forest in central North Carolina, Croatan National Forest in eastern North Carolina, Pisgah National Forest in the western mountains, and Nanaholland National Forest in the southwestern part of the state. Uwharrie National Forest locally, Uwharrie. Uwharrie 3 is a federally designated national forest region located primarily in Montgomery County, but also extending into Randolph and Davidson counties in south-central North Carolina. It is the smallest of the 4 national forests in North Carolina, with a total area of 50,645 acres, 200 for 0.95 square kilometers. About 79% of its acreage is in Montgomery County. The forest is managed together with the other three North Carolina national forests, Croatan, Nantahala, and Pisgah, from common headquarters in Asheville, North Carolina. However, it does have a local ranger district office in Troy, North Carolina. There is one officially designated wilderness area within the forest, the 5,025-acre, 20.3 for square kilometers, Birkhead Mountains Wilderness. The western border of the forest is made by the Yadkin River, PD River, while the northern border follows the northernmost range of the Owaries near Asheboro. To the east, the forest is bordered by the Montgomery County seat of Troy. The forest lies within the Southeastern mixed forests ecoregion and supports mixed forests of pine and oak. For land was first purchased by the federal government in 1931, and the area was known as the Uwharrie Reservation. The forest is bisected by several state and interstate highways. Both Interstate 73 and Interstate 70 run along the eastern boundary of the forest on the Moore County line from north to south, and C-73 runs from west to east from the Yadkin River to Mount Gilead. U.S. Highway 220 runs parallel to I-73 74ths, and C-109 runs from north to south from the Davidson County line to its end in Troy, and C-20 for 27ths both run from the Yadkin River in the west to Moore County in the east. The first substantial gold strike in the United States was discovered near this area in 1799, and gold was found in the Uwharrie Mountains in the 19th century. A mini gold rush occurred during the Great Depression. Panning for gold in the forest streams and rivers remains a popular activity. Boating and fishing are available at Batten Lake, while the 20-mile 30.19 kilometers Uwharrie National Recreation Trail runs through the forest. Other trails and paths provide opportunities for hiking, mountain biking, camping, and horseback riding. Uwharrie National Forest has received attention for unconfirmed sightings of mountain lions within forest boundaries. 5. The Nantahala National Forest, Kinchilk, is the largest of the 4 national forests in North Carolina, lying in the mountains and valleys of western North Carolina. The Nantahala is the second wettest region in the country, after the Pacific Northwest. Due to its environmental importance and historical ties with the Cherokee, the forest was officially established on January 29, 1920, by President Woodrow Wilson. 3-4. The word Nantahala is a Cherokee-derived word, meaning land of the noonday sun. In some spots, the sun reaches the floors of the deep gorges of the forest only when it is high overhead at midday. This was part of the homeland of the historic Cherokee and their indigenous ancestors, who have occupied the region for thousands of years. The Nantahala River runs through it. Religion in North Carolina 2014, 145 religion percent evangelical Protestant 35% unaffiliated 20% mainline Protestant 19%, historically black Protestant 12%, Catholic 9%, Mormon 1%, Eastern Orthodox 1%, Jehovah's Witness 1%, Jewish 1%, other faith 1%, North Carolina residents. Since the colonial era have historically been overwhelmingly Protestant, first Anglican, then Baptist and Methodist. In 2010, the Southern Baptist Convention was the single largest Christian denomination, with 4,241 churches and 1,513,000 members. The second largest in 2024 was the Roman Catholic Church, which is organized into 2 dioceses. In the west is the Roman Catholic Diocese of Charlotte, which includes Charlotte and has 530,000 members in 196 parishes. In the east is the Diocese of Raleigh, with a total of 80 parishes and nearly 500,000 Catholics, 146. The third largest was the United Methodist Church, with 660,000 members and 1,923 churches. The fourth largest was the Presbyterian Church, USA, with 186,000 members and 710 congregations. This denomination was brought by Scots-Irish immigrants who settled the backcountry in the colonial era. 147. In 2020, the Southern Baptists remain the largest, with 1,324,747 adherents, though Methodists and others were collectively overtaken by non-interdenominational Protestants, numbering 1,053,564, 148 in 1845. The Baptists split into regional associations of the northern United States and southern U.S. over the issue of slavery. These new associations were the Northern Baptist Convention, today the American Baptist Churches USA, and Southern Baptist Convention. By the late 19th century, the largest Protestant denomination in North Carolina were Baptists. After emancipation, Black Baptists quickly set up their own independent congregations in North Carolina and other states of the South, as they wanted to be free of white supervision. 149, 150, 151, Black Baptists developed their own state and national associations, such as the National Baptist Convention. 150, other primarily African American Baptist conventions, which grew in the state since the 20th century, were the Progressive National Baptist Convention and Full Gospel Baptist Church Fellowship. Methodists, the second largest group among North Carolinian Protestants, were divided along racial lines in the United Methodist Church and African Methodist Episcopal Church. The Methodist tradition tends to be strong in the northern Piedmont, especially in populous Guilford County. Other prominent Protestant groups in North Carolina, as of the Pew Research Center's 2014 study, were non-interdenominational Protestants and Pentecostalism. The Assemblies of God and Church of God in Christ are the largest Pentecostal denominations operating in the state, while notable minorities include Oneness Pentecostals primarily affiliated with the United Pentecostal Church International. The state also has a special history with the Moravian Church, as settlers of this faith, largely of German origin, settled in the Winston-Salem area in the 18th and 19th centuries. Historically, Scots-Irish have had a strong presence in Charlotte and in Scotland County. 150 to a wide variety of non-Christian faiths are practiced by other residents in the state, including Judaism, Islam, Baha'i, Buddhism, and Hinduism. The rapid influx of Northerners and immigrants from Latin America is steadily increasing ethnic and religious diversity within the state. The number of Roman Catholics and Jews in the state has increased, along with general religious diversity as a whole. There are also a substantial number of Quakers in Guilford County and northeastern North Carolina. Many universities and colleges in the state have been founded on religious traditions, and some currently maintain that affiliation, including 153. Economy main article. Economy of North Carolina. North Carolina's 2018 total gross state product was $496 billion. 154, based on American Community Survey, 2010 to 2014 data. North Carolina's median household income was $46,693. It ranked 41st out of 50 states, plus the District of Columbia for median household income. North Carolina had the 14th highest poverty rate in the nation at 17.6%, with 13% of families that were below the poverty line. 155 Charlotte is home to the headquarters of Bank of America Foreground and Truist Background, two of the largest banks in the United States. Bank of America is the largest company headquartered in North Carolina. 156, the state has a very diverse economy because of its great availability of hydroelectric power. 157, its pleasant climate, and its wide variety of soils. The state ranks third among the South Atlantic states in population, but leads the region in industry and agriculture. 158, 159. North Carolina leads the nation in the production of tobacco. 160, Charlotte, the state's largest city, is a major textile and trade center. According to a Forbes article written in 2013, employment in the Old North State has gained many different industry sectors. Science, technology, engineering, and math STEM industries in the area surrounding North Carolina's capital have grown 17.9% since 2001. Raleigh ranked the third best city for technology in 2020 due to the state's growing technology sector. 161. In 2010, North Carolina's total gross state product was $424.9 billion, 162, while the state debt in November 2012, according to one source, totaled to $0.4 billion, 163, while according to another, was in 2012 $57.8 billion, 164. In 2011, the civilian labor force was at around 4.5 million, with employment near 4.1 million. North Carolina is the leading U.S. state in production of flue-cured tobacco and sweet potatoes, and comes second in the farming of pigs and hogs, trout, and turkeys. 165-166. In the three most recent USDA surveys, 2002, 2007, 2012, North Carolina also ranked second in the production of Christmas trees. 165-167, 168, North Carolina has 15 metropolitan areas, 121, and in 2010 was chosen as the third best state for business by Forbes magazine, and the second best state by Chief Executive Officer magazine. 169. Since 2000, there has been a clear division in the economic growth of North Carolina's urban, while North Carolina's urban areas have enjoyed a prosperous economy with steady job growth, low unemployment, and rising wages. Many of the state's rural counties have suffered from job loss, rising levels of poverty, and population loss as their manufacturing base has declined. According to one estimate, one half of North Carolina's 100 counties have lost population since 2010, primarily due to the poor economy in many of North Carolina's rural areas. However, the population of the state's urban areas is steadily increasing. 170. Arts and Culture. Main articles: Culture of North Carolina and list of museums in North Carolina. North Carolina has traditions in art, music, and cuisine. The nonprofit arts and culture industry generates $1.2 billion in direct economic activity in North Carolina, supporting more than 4,600 full-time equivalent jobs and generating $119 million in revenue for local governments and the state of North Carolina. 171. North Carolina established the North Carolina Museum of Art as the first major museum collection in the country to be formed by state legislation and funding. 172, and continues to bring millions into the NC economy. 173. One of the more famous arts communities in the state is Seagrove, the handmade pottery capital of the U.S., where artisans create handcrafted pottery inspired by the same traditions that began in this community more than 200 years ago. The North Carolina Museum of Art, NCMA, is an art museum in Raleigh, North Carolina. It opened in 1956 as the first major museum collection in the country to be formed by state legislation and funding. 1. Since the initial 1947 appropriation that established its collection, the museum has continued to be a model of enlightened public policy with free admission to the permanent collection. Today, it encompasses a collection that spans more than 5,000 years of artistic work from antiquity to the present, an amphitheater for outdoor performances, and a variety of celebrated exhibitions and public programs. The museum features over 40 galleries, as well as more than a dozen major works of art in the nation's largest museum park, with 164 acres, 0.66 square kilometers. One of the leading art museums in the American South, the NCMA recently completed a major expansion, winning international acclaim for innovative approaches to energy-efficient design. 2. TV and film. Further information. Category: Films shot in North Carolina. Category: Television shows filmed in North Carolina, and films and television shows produced in Wilmington, North Carolina. Film and television shot, produced in Wilmington, North Carolina, are usually independent and or low-budget films, mainly due to Wilmington being relatively more affordable than other cities to film in. Other reasons for Wilmington's appeal include its local university UNCW, its location on the coast, the presence of many historic buildings, sites, and vast swamps and waterways outside of Wilmington. 1. It has remained the largest film and television production area in North Carolina since the 1980s, when the first major productions started to be made in the region. To producer Dino De Laurentiis first came to Wilmington to film Firestarter, which was released in 1984. 3. He would later create De Laurentiis Entertainment Group DEG, build a studio complex operated by a subsidiary called the North Carolina Film Corporation and found its headquarters in Wilmington. The film studio began releasing films in 1986, after it declared Chapter 11 bankruptcy in 1989. Most of the company, as well as its studio complex in Wilmington, was sold to Coralco Pictures. 5. The company would later declare Chapter 11 bankruptcy, and the same studio complex was sold to Screen Gems in 1996. 6. 7. In 2013, Marvel Studios' Iron Man 3 was released to theaters. Some places used in the film were the Port of Wilmington, Cape Fear River, and New Hanover Regional Medical Center. It remains the largest film to be shot in Wilmington and North Carolina State. 9. In the mid to late 2010s, the city's film industry slowed due to the North Carolina General Assembly not extending pre-2014 film incentives and Governor Pat McCrory signing the controversial House Bill L to HB 2 in 2017. 10-11. Most of the business went to other major cities, including Atlanta, Georgia, where Screen Gems also had a studio complex. 12, 13, 14, 15 around the early 2020s after the COVID-19 lockdowns, repeal of HB 2, and changes to state film incentives, filming in the area began to increase again, with 2021 being the industry's biggest year to date, breaking the previous record set in 2012. 11, 16, 17, 18, 2021 was also the biggest year for the whole film industry at large in the state of North Carolina. 18. In 2022, Dark Horse Studios, which became Wilmington's second film studio in 2020, planned a $20 million expansion to their studio complex in Wilmington, set to be complete in 2024. 19. 2021. On September 27, 2023, Cinespace Studios announced it had purchased Screen Gems Studios locations in Wilmington and Atlanta. 22. As of 2020, 138 films and 160 television shows, series have been shot, produced in the city. 3. Wilmington has been many nicknames referencing its film industry, including Wilmywood and Hollywood of the East or Hollywood East. 23-24. Music main articles, Music of North Carolina and North Carolina Music Hall of Fame. In North Carolina boasts a large number of noteworthy jazz musicians, some among the most important in the history of the genre. These include John Coltrane, Hamlet, High Point, Thelonious Monk, Rocky Mount, Billy Taylor Greenville, Woody Shaw Lornberg, Lou Donaldson Durham, Max Roach Newland, Tall Farlow Greensboro, Albert, Jimmy and Percy Heath Wilmington, Nina Simone Tryon, and Billy Strayhorn Hillsborough. Fiddlin' Bill Hensley, Mountain Fiddler, Asheville, 1937. North Carolina is also famous for its tradition of old-time music, and many recordings were made in the early 20th century by folk song collector Bascom Lamar Lunsford. Musicians such as the North Carolina Ramblers helped solidify the sound of country music in the late 1920s, while the influential bluegrass musician Doc Watson also hailed from North Carolina. Both North and South Carolina are hotbeds for traditional rural blues, especially the style known as the Piedmont Blues. Ben Folds 5 originated in Winston-Salem, and Ben Folds still records and resides in Chapel Hill. The British band Pink Floyd is named, in part, after Chapel Hill bluesman Floyd Council. The Research Triangle area has long been a well-known center for folk, rock, metal, jazz, and punk. 174. James Taylor grew up around Chapel Hill, and his 1968 song Carolina in My Mind has been called an unofficial anthem for the state. 175, 176, 177 other famous musicians from North Carolina include J. Cole, Da Bobby, Ninth Wonder, Shirley Caesar, Roberta Flack, Clyde McPhatter, Nina Freeland, Link Ray, Warren Haynes, Jimmy Herring, Michael Hauser, Eric Church, Future Islands, Randy Travis, Ryan Adams, Ronnie Millsap, Anthony Hamilton, the Avett Brothers, Charlie Daniels, and Luke Combs. Metal and punk acts such as Corrosion of Conformity, Between the Buried and Me, and Nightmare Sonata are native to North Carolina. EDM producer Porter Robinson hails from Chapel Hill. North Carolina is the home of more American Idol finalists than any other state. Clay Aiken Season 2, Fantasia Barrino Season 3, Chris Daughtry Season 5, Kelly Pickler Season 5, Hucky Covington Season 5, Anoop Desai Season 8, Scotty McCreery Season 10, and Caleb Johnson. North Carolina also has the most American Idol winners with Barrino, McCreery, and Johnson. In the mountains, the Brevard Music Center hosts choral, operatic, orchestral, and solo performances during its annual summer schedule. North Carolina has 5 professional opera companies: Opera Carolina in Charlotte, and Sea Opera in Raleigh, Greensboro Opera in Greensboro, Piedmont Opera in Winston-Salem, and Asheville Lyric Opera in Asheville. Academic conservatories and universities also produce fully staged operas, such as the A.J. Fletcher Opera Institute of the University of North Carolina School of the Arts in Winston-Salem, the Department of Music of the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, and UNC Greensboro. Among others, there are 3 high-level symphonic orchestras: NC Symphony in Raleigh, Charlotte Symphony, and Winston-Salem Symphony. The NC Symphony holds the North Carolina Master Chorale. The Carolina Ballet is headquartered in Raleigh, and there is also the Charlotte Ballet. The state boasts 3 performing arts centers: DPAC in Durham, Duke Energy Center for the Performing Arts in Raleigh, and the Blumenthal Performing Arts Centers in Charlotte. They feature concerts, operas, recitals, and traveling Broadway musicals. 178, 179, 180. Shopping. North Carolina has a variety of shopping choices. South Park Mall in Charlotte is the largest and most upscale mall in the Carolinas, featuring multiple luxury tenants with their sole location in the state. Other major malls in Charlotte include Northlake Mall and Carolina Place Mall in nearby suburb Penneville. Other major malls throughout the state include Haynes Mall in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, the Thruway Center in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, Crabtree Valley Mall, North Hills Mall, and Triangle Town Center in Raleigh, Friendly Center and Four Seasons Town Center in Greensboro, Oak Hollow Mall in High Point, Concord Mills in Concord, Valley Hills Mall in Hickory, Cross Creek Mall in Fayetteville, and The Streets at South Point in Durham, and Independence Mall in Wilmington, North Carolina, and Tanger Outlets in Charlotte, Nags Head, Blowing Rock, and Mebane, North Carolina. Cuisine and agriculture. 2008 Lexington Barbecue Festival. A culinary staple of North Carolina is pork barbecue. There are strong regional differences and rivalries over the sauces and methods used in making the barbecue. The common trend across western North Carolina is the use of premium-grade Boston butt. Western North Carolina pork barbecue uses a tomato-based sauce, and only the pork shoulder dark meat is used. Western North Carolina barbecue is commonly referred to as Lexington barbecue after the Piedmont triad town of Lexington, home of the Lexington Barbecue Festival, which attracts more than 100,000 visitors each October. 181. 182. Eastern North Carolina pork barbecue uses a vinegar and red pepper-based sauce, and the whole hog is cooked, thus integrating both white and dark meat. 183. Krispy Kreme, an international chain of donut stores, was started in North Carolina. The company's headquarters are in Winston-Salem. Pepsi-Cola was first produced in 1898 in New Bern. A regional soft drink, Cheerwine, was created and is still based in the city of Salisbury. Despite its name, The hot sauce Texas Pete was created in North Carolina. Its headquarters are also in Winston-Salem. The Hardee's fast food chain was started in Rocky Mount. Another fast food chain, Bojangles, was started in Charlotte and has its corporate headquarters there. A popular North Carolina restaurant chain is Golden Corral. Started in 1973, the chain was founded in Fayetteville, with headquarters located in Raleigh. Popular pickle brand Mount Olive Pickle Company was founded in Mount Olive in 1926. Fast casual burger chain Highway 55 Burgers, Shakes, and Fries also makes its home in Mount Olive. Cookout, a popular fast food chain featuring burgers, hot dogs, and milkshakes in a wide variety of flavors, was founded in Greensboro in 1989 and has begun expanding outside North Carolina. In 2013, Southern Living named Durham Chapel Hill the South's tastiest city. Over the last decade, North Carolina has become a cultural epicenter and haven for internationally prize-winning wine Noni Vacca Winery, internationally prized cheeses, Ashe County, L'Institut International aux Arts Gastronomiques, Conquer en les Yanks les Truffes, January 15, 2010 International Hub for Truffles Garland Truffles, and beer making, as tobacco land has been converted to grape orchards, while state laws regulating alcohol by volume, ABV, in beer allowed a jump from 6 to 15%. The Yadkin Valley in particular has become a strengthening market for grape production, while Asheville recently won the recognition of being named Beer City USA. Asheville boasts the largest number of breweries per capita of any city in the United States. Recognized and marketed brands of beer in North Carolina include Highland Brewing, Duck Rabbit Brewery, Mother Earth Brewery, Weeping Radish Brewery, Big Boss Brewing, Foothills Brewing, Carolina Brewing Company, Lone Rider Brewing, and White Rabbit Brewing Company. North Carolina has large grazing areas for beef and dairy cattle. Truck farms can be found in North Carolina. A truck farm is a small farm where fruits and vegetables are grown to be sold at local markets. The state's shipping, commercial fishing, and lumber industries are important to its economy. Service industries, including education, healthcare, private research, and retail trade, are also important. Research Triangle Park, a large industrial complex located in the Raleigh-Durham area, is one of the major centers in the country for electronics and medical research. 184 Tobacco was one of the first major industries to develop after the Civil War. Many farmers grew some tobacco, and the invention of the cigarette made the product especially popular. Winston-Salem is the birthplace of R.J. Reynolds Tobacco Company, RJR, founded by R.J. Reynolds in 1874 as one of 16 tobacco companies in the town. By 1914, it was selling 425 million packs of Camels a year. Today, it is the second largest tobacco company in the U.S., behind Altria Group. RJR is an indirect wholly owned subsidiary of Reynolds American Inc., which in turn is 42% owned by British American Tobacco. 185. Ships named for the state. Further information: USS North Carolina, North Carolina, on permanent display in Wilmington. Several ships have been named after the state. Most famously USS North Carolina in the Pacific Ocean theater of World War II. Now decommissioned, she is part of the USS North Carolina Battleship Memorial in Wilmington. Another USS North Carolina, a nuclear attack submarine, was commissioned in Wilmington on May 3, 2008. 186. USS North Carolina BB-55 is the lead ship of the North Carolina class of fast battleships, the first vessel of the type built for the United States Navy. Built under the Washington Treaty System, North Carolina's design was limited in displacement and armament, though the United States used a clause in the Second London Naval Treaty to increase the main battery from the original armament of 12 14-inch 356 mm guns in quadruple turrets to 9 16 and 406 mm guns in triple turrets. The ship was laid down in 1937 and completed in April 1941. while the United States was still neutral during World War II. Following the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor in December, North Carolina mobilized for war and was initially sent to counter a possible sortie by the German battleship Tirpitz. Though this did not materialize and North Carolina was promptly transferred to the Pacific to strengthen Allied forces during the Guadalcanal campaign. There, she screened aircraft carriers engaged in the campaign and took part in the Battle of the Eastern Solomons on the 24th to the 25th of August 1942, where she shot down several Japanese aircraft. The next month, she was torpedoed by a Japanese submarine, but was not seriously damaged. After repairs, she returned to the campaign and continued to screen carriers during the campaigns across the Central Pacific in 1943 and 1944, including the Gilberts and Marshall Islands and the Mariana and Palau Islands, where she saw action during the Battle of the Philippine Sea. The ship was undergoing a refit during the invasion of the Philippines, but took part in the later stages of the Philippines campaign and was present when the fleet was damaged by Typhoon Cobra. She took part in offensive operations in support of the battles of Iwo Jima and Okinawa in 1945, including numerous attacks on Japan. Following the surrender of Japan in August, she carried American personnel home during Operation Magic Carpet. North Carolina operated briefly off the east coast of the United States in 1946 before being decommissioned the next year and placed in reserve. Stricken from the Naval Vessel Register in 1960, the ship was saved from the breaker's yard by a campaign to preserve the vessel as a museum ship in her namesake state. In 1962, the North Carolina Museum was opened in Wilmington, North Carolina. The Pacific Ocean Theater of World War II was a major theater of the Pacific War, the war between the Allies and the Empire of Japan. It included the U.S. Pacific Ocean Areas Command, which included most of the Pacific Ocean and its islands. The Philippines, the Dutch East Indies, Borneo, Australia, most of the territory of New Guinea, and the western part of the Solomon Islands were under a different Allied command. USS North Carolina SSN 777, a Virginia-class attack submarine, is the fourth vessel of the United States Navy named for U.S. state of North Carolina. The contract to build her was awarded to Northrop Grumman Newport News on the 30th of September, 1998, and her keel was laid down on the 24th of May 2004. She was launched on the 5th of May 2007. North Carolina was commissioned on the 3rd of May 2008 in Wilmington, North Carolina. This class of submarine is unique in that it features the Photonics Mass Program PMP that freed ship designers to place the boat's control room in a lower, less geometrically constrained space than would be required by a standard optical tube periscope. It is additionally unique in the U.S. Navy for featuring all-digital ship and ballast control systems that are operated by relatively senior watchstanders, and a pressure chamber to deploy SEAL divers while being submerged. Citation needed. She is capable of diverse missions, including conventional submarine warfare, strike warfare, mining operations, and delivery of special operations personnel and equipment. For a submarine or sub is a watercraft capable of independent operation underwater. It differs from a submersible, which has more limited underwater capability. 2. Submarines are referred to as boats rather than ships regardless of their size. 3. Although experimental submarines had been built earlier, submarine design took off during the 19th century, and submarines were adopted by several navies. They were first used widely during World War I 1914 to 1918, and are now used in many navies, large and small. Their civilian uses include marine science, salvage, exploration, and facility inspection and maintenance. Submarines can be modified for specialized functions such as search and rescue missions and undersea cable repair. They are also used in the tourism industry and in undersea archaeology. Modern deep-diving submarines derive from the bathyscaphe, which evolved from the diving bell. Most large submarines consist of a cylindrical body with hemispherical or conical ends and a vertical structure, usually located amidships, which houses communications and sensing devices as well as periscopes. In modern submarines, this structure is called the sail in American usage and fin in European usage. A feature of earlier designs was the conning tower, a separate pressure hull above the main body of the boat that enabled the use of shorter periscopes. There is a propeller or pump jet at the rear and various hydrodynamic control fins. Smaller, deep diving, and specialty submarines may deviate significantly from this traditional design. Submarines dive and resurface by using diving planes and by changing the amount of water and air in ballast tanks to affect their buoyancy. Submarines encompass a wide range of types and capabilities. They range from small, autonomous examples, such as one- or two-person subs that operate for a few hours, to vessels that can remain submerged for 6 months, such as the Russian Typhoon class, the biggest submarines ever built. Submarines can work at depths that are greater than what is practicable or even survivable for human divers. 4. State parks. State maintains a group of protected areas known as the North Carolina State Park System, which is managed by the North Carolina Division of Parks and Recreation (NCDPR), an agency of the North Carolina Department of Natural and Cultural Resources (NCDNCR). 187. Protected areas or conservation areas are locations which receive protection because of their recognized natural or cultural values. Protected areas are those areas in which human presence or the exploitation of natural resources, e.g. firewood, non-timber forest products, water, is limited. 1. The term protected area also includes marine protected areas and transboundary protected areas across multiple borders. As of 2016, there are over 161,000 protected areas, representing about 17% of the world's land surface area, excluding Antarctica. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. For waters under national jurisdiction beyond inland waters, there are 14,688 marine protected areas (MPA) letters, covering approximately 10.2% of coastal and marine areas and for 0.12% of global ocean areas. 2. In contrast, only 0.5% of the world's oceans beyond national jurisdiction are covered by MPA letters. 7. In recent years, the 30 by 30 initiative has targeted to protect 30% of ocean territory and 30% of land territory worldwide by 2030. This has been adopted by the European Union in its Biodiversity Strategy for 2030, Campaign for Nature, which promoted the goal during the Convention on Biodiversity COP15 Summit 8 and the G7. 9. In December 2022, nations have reached an agreement with the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework at the COP15, 10, which includes the 30 by 30 initiative. 7 protected areas are implemented for biodiversity conservation, often providing habitat and protection from hunting for threatened and endangered species. Protection helps maintain ecological processes that cannot survive in most intensely managed landscapes and seascapes. 11 Indigenous peoples and local communities frequently criticize this method of fortress conservation for the generally violent processes by which the regulations of the areas are enforced. 12 The state of North Carolina has a group of protected areas known as the North Carolina State Park System, which is managed by the North Carolina Division of Parks and Recreation (NCDPR), an agency of the North Carolina Department of Natural and Cultural Resources (NCDNCR). Units of the system can only be established by an act of the General Assembly of North Carolina. The park system began in 1916 when the summit of Mount Mitchell became first state park in the southeastern United States. 1. According to the Division of Parks and Recreation, the State Parks Act of 1987 lists 6 types of units included in the NC State Park System. 1. These are state parks, state recreation areas, state natural areas, state lakes, state trails, and state rivers. All units of the system are owned and or managed by the division, and the division leases some of the units to other agencies for operation. Most units of the park system are also components of state nature and historic preserve. The North Carolina Department of Natural and Cultural Resources is a cabinet-level department within the state government of North Carolina dedicated to overseeing projects in the arts, culture, and history within the borders of the state. The current Secretary of Natural and Cultural Resources, the cabinet-level officer who oversees the department, is D. Reed Wilson. Wilson has been in office since January 2021 and was immediately preceded by Susie Hamilton, who served as secretary from 2017 to 2021 too. Armed Forces Installation Strops of the 82nd Airborne Division, training at Fort Bragg, March 2011. Fort Bragg, near Fayetteville and Southern Pines, is a large and comprehensive military base and is the headquarters of the 18th Airborne Corps, 82nd Airborne Division, and the U.S. Army Special Operations Command. Serving as the air wing for Fort Bragg is Pope Field, also located near Fayetteville. Located in Jacksonville, Marine Corps Base Camp Lemoyne, combined with nearby bases Marine Corps Air Station MCAS Cherry Point, MCAS New River, Camp Geiger, Camp Johnson, Stone Bay, and Courthouse Bay, makes up the largest concentration of Marines and sailors in the world. MCAS Cherry Point is home of the 2nd Marine Aircraft Wing. Located in Goldsboro, Seymour Johnson Air Force Base is home of the 4th Fighter Wing and 916th Air Refueling Wing. One of the busiest air stations in the United States Coast Guard is located at the Coast Guard Air Station in Elizabeth City. Also stationed in North Carolina is the Military Ocean Terminal Sunny Point in Southport. Tourism Biltmore Estate, Asheville Cape Hatteras Lighthouse, located in North Carolina's Outer Banks. Charlotte is the most visited city in the state, attracting 28.3 million visitors in 2018. 190 area attractions include Carolina Panthers NFL football team and Charlotte Hornets basketball team, Carowinds Amusement Park, Catawba to Kings Casino in nearby Kings Mountain, Charlotte Motor Speedway, U.S., National Whitewater Center, Discovery Place, Great Wolf Lodge, Sea Life Aquarium, 191, Beckler Museum of Modern Art, Billy Graham Library, Carolina's Aviation Museum, Harvey B. Gantt Center for African American Arts Plus Culture, Levine Museum of the New South, McColl Center for Art Plus Innovation, Mint Museum, and the NASCAR Hall of Fame. Every year, the Appalachian Mountains attract several million tourists to the western part of the state, 192, including the historic Biltmore Estate. The scenic Blue Ridge Parkway and Great Smoky Mountains National Park are the two most visited national park and unit in the United States, with more than 25 million visitors in 2013. 193. The city of Asheville is consistently voted as one of the top places to visit and live in the United States, known for its rich Art Deco architecture, mountain scenery, and outdoor activities. 190. For 195, in Raleigh, many tourists visit the capital, African American Cultural Complex, 196, Contemporary Art Museum of Raleigh, Gregg Museum of Art and Design at NCSU, Haywood Hall House and Gardens, Marbles Kids Museum, North Carolina Museum of Art, North Carolina Museum of History, North Carolina Museum of Natural Sciences, North Carolina Sports Hall of Fame, Raleigh City Museum, J. C. Ralston Arboretum, Joel Lane House, Mordecai House, Montford Hall, and the Pope House Museum. The Carolina Hurricanes NHL hockey team is also located in the city. In the Conover-Hickory area, attractions include Hickory Motor Speedway, Rock Barn Golf and Spa, 197, home of the Greater Hickory Classic at Rock Barn, Catawba County Firefighters Museum, 198, the Salt Block, 199, and Valley Hills Mall. The Piedmont Triad, or center of the state, is home to Krispy Kreme, Mayberry, Texas Pete, the Lexington Barbecue Festival, and Moravian cookies. The internationally acclaimed North Carolina Zoo in Asheboro attracts visitors to its animals, plants, and a 57-piece art collection along 5 miles 8 kilometers of shaded pathways in the world's largest land, 500-area natural habitat park. Seagrove, in the central portion of the state, attracts many tourists along Pottery Highway and C Highway 705. Merlefest in Wilkesboro attracts more than 80,000 people to its 4-day music festival. And Wet n Wild Emerald Point Water Park in Greensboro is another attraction. 200 The Outer Banks and surrounding beaches attract millions of people to the Atlantic beaches every year. 201 The mainland northeastern part of the state, having recently adopted the name the Inner Banks, is also known as the Albemarle region for the Albemarle settlements, some of the first settlements on North Carolina's portion of the Atlantic coastal plain. The region's historic sites are connected by the historic Albemarle Tour. Transportation article. Transportation in North Carolina. Also, vehicle registration plates of North Carolina and list of North Carolina railroads. Most common license plate design in the state includes the Wright Flyer in the background links light rail car in Charlotte's Dayton, Piedmont. Train and High Point transportation systems in North Carolina consist of air, water, road, rail, and public transportation including intercity rail via Amtrak and light rail. In Charlotte, North Carolina has the second largest state highway system in the country as well as the largest ferry system on the East Coast. 200 to North Carolina's airports serve destinations throughout the United States and international destinations in Canada, Europe, Central America, and the Caribbean. In July 2022, Charlotte Douglas International Airport, which serves as the second busiest hub for American Airlines, ranked as the 11th busiest airport in the United States, with Raleigh-Durham International Airport, a focus city for Delta Airlines and formerly a hub for American Airlines and Midway Airlines, ranked as the 37th busiest airport in the United States. 203 North Carolina has a growing passenger rail system, with Amtrak serving most major cities. Charlotte is also home to North Carolina's only light rail system known as LYNX 200 for the East Coast of the United States, also known as the Eastern Seaboard, the Atlantic Coast, and the Atlantic Seaboard, is the region encompassing the coastline where the eastern United States meets the Atlantic Ocean. It has always played a major socio-economic role in the development of the United States. The region is generally understood to include the U.S. states that border the Atlantic Ocean. Charlotte Douglas is the primary airport for commercial and military use in the Charlotte metropolitan area. Operated by the City of Charlotte's Aviation Department, the airport covers 5,558 acres to 1,249 hectares of land. Established in 1935 as Charlotte Municipal Airport, the airport was later renamed as Douglas Municipal Airport for Ben Elbert Douglas Sr., who was mayor of Charlotte when the airport was first built. Charlotte is a fortress hub for American Airlines, which operates the majority of the airport's flights. The airport has 3 operating runways and 1 passenger terminal, with 124 gates across 5 concourses. A commercial civil military facility, the airport is home to the Charlotte Air National Guard Base and its host unit, the 145th Airlift Wing of the North Carolina Air National Guard. 10 American Airlines, Inc. is a major airline in the United States headquartered in Fort Worth, Texas, within the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, and is the largest airline in the world in terms of passengers carried and daily flights. 8 American, along with its regional subsidiaries and contractors operating under the brand name American Eagle, operate an extensive international and domestic network with almost 6,800 flights per day to nearly 350 destinations in 48 countries. The airline is also a founding member of the One World Alliance, one of the world's 3 major airline alliances. American Airlines and American Eagle operate out of 10 hubs, with Dallas, Fort Worth International Airport DFW being the largest. The airline serves more than 200 million passengers annually and averages more than 500,000 daily. As of 2024, the company employs 103,440 staff members. Raleigh-Durham International Airport IATA, RDU, ICAO, KRDU, FAA LID, RDU, locally known by its IATA code RDU, is an international airport that serves Raleigh, Durham, and the surrounding Research Triangle region of North Carolina as its main airport. It is located in unincorporated Wake County, but is surrounded by the city of Raleigh to the north and east, and the towns of Cary and Morrisville to the south. The airport covers 5,000 acres, 20 square kilometers, and has 3 runways. 2-3 as of 2025. RDU ranks 35th in passenger arrivals and departures in the U.S., offering passenger service to nearly 80 destinations, including 15 international destinations in 11 countries. 4. The airport serves 31 U.S. states, plus Puerto Rico, with Atlanta being the busiest domestic route and New York metropolitan area having the most passengers per day. 5. There are nearly 600 daily aircraft operations. 6. The RDU Airport Authority is in charge of the airport facilities and operations and is controlled by a board of representatives from the counties of Wake and Durham and the cities of Raleigh and Durham. Raleigh-Durham International Airport is the second largest airport in the state of North Carolina, behind Charlotte Douglas International Airport. The main catchment area is central and eastern North Carolina and southern Virginia. 7. The airport is an operating base for Avelo Airlines and Endeavor Air, as well as a focus city for Delta Airlines. In 2024, RDU served a record 15.5 million passengers, which broke the airport's record of 14.5 million passengers set in 2023 SAT. Primary and secondary education. See also list of school districts in North Carolina and list of high schools in North Carolina. A lesson at New Kitchewa Academy on the Qualla boundary in North Carolina. This bilingual language immersion school, operated by the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians, teaches the same curriculum as other state elementary schools. Elementary and secondary public schools are overseen by the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction. The North Carolina Superintendent of Public Instruction is the Secretary of the North Carolina State Board of Education, but the board, rather than the superintendent, holds most of the legal authority for making public education policy. In 2009, the board's chairman also became the chief executive officer for the state's school system. 205. North Carolina has 115 public school systems, each of which is overseen by a local school board. 206. 207. A county may have one or more systems within it. The largest school systems in North Carolina are the Wake County Public School System, Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools, Guilford County Schools, Winston-Salem, Forsyth County Schools, and Cumberland County Schools. 208. In total, there are 2,425 public schools in the state, including over 200 charter schools. 209 North Carolina schools were segregated until the Brown v. Board of Education trial and the release of the Pearsall Plan. Previously, the SAT was the dominant university entrance examination students took. In 2000, 76% of NC high school students took the SAT. In 2012, state law changed, which required 11th grade students to take the ACT. The SAT testing rate fell to 46% in 2019. Because students now can take that test for free, the ACT became the dominant university entrance examination. This also caused SAT average scores to rise, as in 1996 North Carolina was 48th nationally in SAT scores, but the profile of students taking the SAT has gotten smaller. Health. The Institute for Health Metrics and Evaluation IHME is a public health research institute of the University of Washington in Seattle. Its research fields are global health statistics and impact evaluation. IHME is headed by Christopher J. L. Murray, a physician, health economist, and global health researcher, and professor at the University of Washington Department of Global Health, which is part of the School of Medicine. IHME conducts research and trains scientists, policymakers, and the public in health metrics concepts, methods, and tools. Its mission includes judging the effectiveness and efficacy of health initiatives and national health systems. 1. IHME also trains students at the post-baccalaureate and postgraduate levels. This article presents a list of United States states and territories sorted by their life expectancy at birth, sex, race, and in the past. The data in the 2018 column is taken from work funded by the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation for the 50 states and the District of Columbia, 5 from the World Bank for Guam, Puerto Rico, and the U.S. Virgin Islands, and from the CIA World Factbook for American Samoa and the Northern Mariana Islands. 6 data in the 2010 columns comes from health data. 7 overall, life expectancy at birth in Hawaii, Washington, California, and New York are among the longest in the nation, while life expectancy at birth in Mississippi, American Samoa, and West Virginia are among the life expectancy in some states has fallen in recent years. For example, Maine's life expectancy in 2010 was 79.1 years, and in 2018 it was 78.7 years. The Washington Post noted in November 2018 that overall life expectancy in the United States was declining, although in 2018, life expectancy had a slight increase of 0.1 and bringing it to having not changed since 2010. 8. The Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, RWJF, is an American philanthropic organization. It is the largest one focused solely on health. Based in Princeton, New Jersey, the foundation focuses on access to health care, public health, health equity, leadership and training, and changing systems to address barriers to health. 2. RWJF has been credited with helping to develop the 911 emergency system, reducing tobacco use among Americans, lowering rates of unwanted teenage pregnancies, and improving perceptions of hospice care. To the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation supports the development of programs that can be used in community-led initiatives or by government bodies. 3. Funds research through surveys and polls. 4. And makes impact investments. 5. According to Pensions and Investments and Foundation Center, the foundation was the 5th largest in the U.S. in investment assets as of 2015, 6.7 as of 2020. The value of its endowment was $13 billion. 1. Government and Politics Mine articles. Government of North Carolina, Politics of North Carolina, and Political Party Strength in North Carolina, North Carolina registered voters as of February 1, 2025, 223 party number of voters percentage and affiliate to 1,810,237 37.52% Democratic to 1,316,778 30.93% Republican to 1,279,274 30.43% Libertarian 45,620 to 0.61% No labels 29,152 0.39% Minor parties 798 0.10% Total 7,488,861 100.00% North Carolina State Legislative Building. Raleigh Government of North Carolina is divided into 3 branches: executive, legislative, and judicial. These consist of the Council of State, led by the governor, the bicameral legislature, called the General Assembly, and the state court system, headed by the North Carolina Supreme Court. The state constitution delineates the structure and function of the state government. Most municipalities in North Carolina operate under council-manager governments. 220 for North Carolina's party loyalties have undergone a series of important shifts in the last few years. While the 2010 midterms saw Tar Heel voters elect a bicameral Republican majority legislature for the first time in more than a century, North Carolina has also become a Southern swing state in presidential races. Since Southern Democrat Jimmy Carter's comfortable victory in the state in 1976, the state had consistently leaned Republican in presidential elections until Democrat Barack Obama narrowly won the state in 2008. In the 1990s, Democrat Bill Clinton came within a point of winning the state in 1992 and also only narrowly lost the state in 1996. In 2000, Republican George W. Bush easily won the state by more than 13 points. By 2008, demographic shifts, population growth, and increased liberalization in densely populated areas such as the Research Triangle, Charlotte, Greensboro, Winston-Salem, Fayetteville, and Asheville propelled Barack Obama to victory in North Carolina, the first Democrat to win the state since 1976. In 2012, North Carolina was again considered a competitive swing state, with the Democrats even holding their 2012 Democratic National Convention in Charlotte. However, Republican Mitt Romney ultimately eked out a 2-point win in North Carolina, the only 2012 swing state Obama lost, and one of only 2 states along with Indiana to flip from Obama in 2008 to the GOP in 2012. Furthermore, Republican Donald Trump carried the state in 2016, 2020, and 2024. 2024 U.S. presidential election results by county in North Carolina, shaded by relative margin of victory move Democratic-Republican. In 2012, the state elected a Republican governor, Pat McCrory, and Lieutenant Governor Dan Forest for the first time in more than 2 decades, while also giving the Republicans veto-proof majorities in both the state House of Representatives and the state Senate. Several U.S. House of Representatives seats flipped control in 2012, with the Republicans holding 9 seats to the Democrats 4. In the 2014 midterm elections, Republican David Rouser won the state's 7th congressional district seat, increasing the congressional delegation party split to 10-3 in favor of the GOP, a split they retained in subsequent elections until 2020, when it narrowed to 8-5 in favor of the GOP. In 2016, despite Donald Trump winning the state, North Carolina voters elected Democrat Roy Cooper as governor, in part due to an unpopular law passed by former Governor Pat McCrory, known as HB 2. Cooper went on to win re-election in 2020, despite Donald Trump narrowly winning the state again against Joe Biden. As a result of the 2020 census, North Carolina gained another seat in the 118th United States Congress for a total of 14,225. In a 2020 study, North Carolina was ranked as the 23rd easiest state for citizens to vote in, 226.